Oh my goodness. Whoa. How the heck are you? How's it going? How is life being for you? I gotta say, today is a little low energy. The weather's kind of clouded over. It's raining. And so, with that, I'm also feeling a little low energy. I think that's just kind of the natural human response to all that. But what better of a day to go on the inside of the brain, figure out what's going on in there, and discover something new. And I wanted to talk about this concept that just really keeps coming up because of how rooted it is with the actual self. It is the self. It is how do you kind of find yourself? Who are you and what makes you up? What is the actual things going on the inside that make you feel about yourself how you feel? Because it isn't just so that we are basically one-way beings in the fact that we just kind of move through life. We are affected by the things that happen to us. We are affected by how we think and what we do. And that creates an image of who we are. That creates the self that we sit in every day, that self that wakes up every day. And so being aware of that and realizing that, well, shoot, at the very least, you have control over what you do. You have a slight control over what you think. I can't say you could be 100% on always figuring out the best thing to think or getting those intrusive thoughts to stop popping up, but you can at least control how you control how you synthesize, man, synthesis, how you process different words, different thoughts going through your brain. I cannot speak today, and that is going to be pretty clear throughout this podcast. But how you process all these thoughts is within your control. The things that happen to you, not necessarily directly in your control, but again, how you process all of those events is within your control. So you do have power in who you are and how you feel about yourself, which is a great realization. It is the foundational realization in order to make any sort of actual change, to make any sort of betterment, and to help other people better themselves. Because if you first realize, okay, I have basically a canvas that I can paint on, shape to who I want to be, well, then you start getting those paintbrushes out. You start realizing all the different colors that you can actually add together. And you end up painting this self-portrait of who you are in a beautiful way. It is no longer something you're embarrassed of. It takes work. Just like anything, it will take a lot of hard, uncomfortable moments. But I believe that those beneficial moments of uncomfortability, of pushing through when you don't feel like it, is what makes it worth it in the end at all. So, what are you, in a sense? I'm going to throw out this idea that you are actually two separate parts, that one come together to create the whole that is you. The thing that is your individuality, the person who you feel you are, is actually a communication between two separate parts of you. The part that thinks of everything, almost, and the part that actually does the actions. I would say the part that thinks of everything. I call this more so the true self, because in a sense, it is everything that you actually truthfully want. It is everything that would be beneficial for you as far as your knowledge is concerned. Now, the part of you that thinks, the part of you that creates actions that could be taken, isn't necessarily every single thought you have. It isn't always the intrusive thoughts, or, if you're standing at a cliff, it's not the truest self that's saying jump, jump, jump. it's not all of the thoughts that you have, but rather the thoughts that you actually want to make action on. And it's kind of clear within your own brain, at least it is for me, which thoughts are coming from my truest self and which are just coming from more so the action-based part of me, the person who sits in the middle of the relationship between these two, which is a weird concept, but it literally arrives from a fact that these two parts of you, so the parts that are making the action and the parts that are making the thoughts, which will hopefully drive the action, are in communication with each other. They are in a relationship. And when this relationship ends up being one that is toxic, one that is untrusted, you have this middle ground that isn't being reached. This stalemate of your brain, the truest version of you, saying that you should do this and this and this. You want to follow this passion. You want to pick up this. And the action part of you not following through with it. Maybe coming up with excuses. Oh, I'm too scared. It's not the right time right now. It isn't for me. And it's this back and forth of untrust, of a toxic mess that's going on. So once you realize that, okay, these two things are making up me, you are in the middle of all of this. The person who you feel sits between these two entities, basically playing a game of Pong between each other. And you want to make that the most efficient, beautiful game that it could be. That's your goal here, is when the true version of yourself, which I would say is the one you should listen to, starts to explain, okay, you should do this. Let's pick something specific, like going to the gym, which is really just the goal of better fitness, better health. Okay, we want to get healthier. We should start going to the gym. Let's say go to the gym 3 times a week. And then your action self goes to the gym once, and then maybe once again the next week, but never hits the 3 times a week. Never really shows up. Well, that's a communication error. That is not following through. That is a trust error. This is literally you thinking of something that should be so. This is the truest version of you thinking of that. And then the action version of you not following through with that promise. And that is where you start to get people who aren't trusting themselves. And they don't sense it as this untrust with themselves. They almost sense it as a destructive nature. Oh, that I am simply lazy, or I am simply harmful to myself. I make bad choices. But it's not any of those things. It's simply the relationship needs to be actually foundational. The truest part of you does not want to cause any harm. The action version of you also does not want to cause any harm, but they are operating on 2 different sets of rules. The action version, for the majority of people, acts in scarcity, where things need to be done for the easiest path to be made. Is carving the easiest path in front of them because it is acting on this scarcity of energy, scarcity of money, of food, of time even. And this doesn't really correlate to the truest version of you who is operating on abundance, who sees the fact that, okay, I have so much time in my life. There's so many things that I can be doing. There's so many opportunities in front of me. And if these parts both aren't operating on abundance, well, you end up having this miscommunication and mistrust. It is really a relationship. And just like any other relationship, you need to be kind with yourself. If you had a friend who was trying to quit an addiction and he ends up relapsing, tells you about it, and you go up to him and just start shaming him, beating him up, absolutely just putting him in the ground because he didn't meet his promise. Are you going to think that friend's going to really come back to you for advice? Really going to put any sense of trust in you? On the other end, if he comes to you with this information and you just make excuses up for him, say that it's okay that he relapsed, say that it's absolutely fine because there's so many, it doesn't even matter for him. Is that even better advice? It's not making the thing any more actually impactful to him. You're just keeping him in the cycle that he knows he needs to break out of. At the same level, you need to interact with yourself in this way. If you come up to yourself when you do not meet a promise and you absolutely beat the poop out of you just for not showing up one day, well, it's going to create a cycle where you feel bad and you end up not showing up again, because showing up for something usually means it's not going to feel the best in the moment, but it will at the end. And so if you keep pushing yourself down and down and down, you're not going to show up anymore. On the other end of the spectrum, if you don't show up for something and you just excuse it as, okay, that's fine, I didn't necessarily need to, it wasn't that important, blah, blah, blah. Well, you're not going to end up showing up either, because then you feel it's not that important. It isn't something that actually needs to happen. So you're not going to give the extra energy. The part of you, the action self operating out of abundance isn't going to show up, or out of scarcity rather, isn't going to show up for something that isn't important, something that doesn't need to happen. So you have to find this middle ground. And this is kind of hard. And I would say it isn't always the same for everyone. No one should be on the extremes. But where you lie in how stern you are with yourself and how relaxed you are with yourself falls differently for a lot of people. I found personally I have to be more so on the stern side, but I cannot completely just beat myself up about it, because that makes me feel bad about missing the thing. And then I end up having less energy to come back the next time around to get the thing done. So I need to bring myself closer and closer to having a little bit of lenience. But this leniency does not mean completely letting go. This does not mean saying, okay, it's fine, it's 100% okay that I missed out. It is more so a mindset of, okay, I can take this. I am disappointed in the fact that I didn't show up today, but I'm using this as a learning lesson that, okay, tomorrow I have a chance to do this, or next week I have a chance to be even better. And just repeating that again and again, and not seeing these moments of slip ups where I don't show up as a failure, but rather as a learning experience. It gives me the same level. Instead of knocking me down a few notches one day, I'm right here and I stay here. I don't go up necessarily, but I stay here, and the next time around I have a good platform to jump off of. It's not going to help you if you just completely beat up on yourself. And I think this mindset, especially in the self-help world, is kind of common. You see, I would honestly describe this as like the David Goggin mindset, where it is just beat up on yourself, just run and run and run, and no excuses ever. And that just doesn't really work realistically when it comes to more than just being the best runner in the world or running the longest or reaching this mental exhaustion state of being able to shut your brain off and push through. Because, okay, what if you want to do that in a sense of actually using your brain, where it's not just showing up and absolutely shutting your brain off and just doing one repetition after another, where it's actually consciously being in the moment. You need to have a good darn relationship with yourself. You can't just be the dictatorship authority. You want to have the authority, but you want to have it be an authority that is respected. It is not one that is feared, and it's not one that you're just going to go under the radar and disobey anyways because it's too lenient. It has to be a authority that you respect, and this respect is why you follow it. You hold authority over yourself. Not a lot of people realize that. Authority with your own self is what brings the confidence to actually achieve pretty much anything. You have authority from these outside figures, and we learn that at a very young age, where we have teachers and principals or bosses or assistant and managers and all of these different authority figures that are able to come in and tell us what to do, and we usually follow them because we have a little bit of fear or whatever, respect even for some, but we forget the fact that we have a relationship with our own selves, and we have the ability to create authority within our own selves, to become the person that we look up to. That is a foreign concept to most. Of course, you can always find people that you look up for in the outside world, but if you're not able to look up to your own self, to have respect and this sense of solace with the fact of how you go throughout the day, well, then you have a little work to do. I'm personally still working on it. It's not something that's instantly going to snap like that, but it is something that needs to be chased. It needs to have some thought put into it. I'm going to take a quick look at these notes because I know I had some more to say. Yes. The one relationship that you cannot escape is the one with yourself. This one with the truest version of who you are. Now, a good advice for a lot of other toxic relationships, if it's not one that is going quite well, is, okay, well, leave the relationship. I know that's not always going to be 100% of the case or 100% viable or even the best option, but let's just say if you're in a toxic relationship, you can just leave it. You can just step out the door. Well, that's not going to work for you. You cannot leave your body. The fact is, we see a lot of people really trying to do this. This is the phenomenon of the infinite distraction, of having something take over your mind from sun up to sundown, having some sort of distraction, whether it be music playing, talking to friends, blah, 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 blah. They get really good at having no amount of silence in their life, no time where it's just them and their thoughts, because they don't want to have to deal with that relationship up there. That doesn't get rid of it. There is no way you can outrun your own self. It is stuck with you, bound to you, and there is no way to get out of it. You can distract yourself from it. You can really disassociate, but that isn't getting you any farther from it. It is just closing your eyes from the thing that is right in front of you. So, knowing this, knowing that we have no viable option, no matter who we are, to escape a toxic relationship with our own selves, we have to change it. We have to make it the best that it can be. We have to take time and energy and take a sort of responsibility with our own selves to come up with a relationship that we are happy to see, that we love, because there's no way around it. It is literally something that's stuck with you. It's who you are. It's how it's going to be for the rest of your life. Make it good. Spend some time to actually figure it out. Now, how do you do that? What is the thing that's going to actually make this beneficial, get better over time? What are we going to do? Well, any relationship is built on one foundation of trust. If you cannot trust the person who you are talking to, well, then you cannot confine any information. You cannot confine any sort of task to them. If you wanted help from someone else and you asked them, but you were quite sure they weren't going to follow through and do that thing, then you probably wouldn't even ask for the help in the first place, and you would feel stuck, helpless. This is the same thing that applies to the relationship with your own self. If you can not come to yourself, ask for something, and not be 100% sure that it will come around and it will actually happen and you will get it done, well, then you have this gap of trust with yourself that still needs to be built. This is something that you can work on lifelong. And it's really just basically a percentage that you're trying to get closer and closer to 100%. But going from 40 to 50 to 60 is big change that you can make right now. It is quite easy to jump from a 20% success rate to a 40% success rate to a 60% success rate. Making sure that you get done what you actually say that you're going to do builds this trust in a cycle sort of fashion where it does really get easier in a sense, not in the sense that there's less work, but in a sense that it takes less of a struggle for you to get in. It's still going to feel the same. It's still going to be difficult or uncomfortable, but there's less struggle in getting into that uncomfortable situation. How you do this is literally being very conscious about what is being fed to you by your truest self, by the thing that is thinking up what you should do, and being very conscious about what your action self is actually doing. Make a promise to yourself. Okay, figure out, let's go back to the gym explanation. Okay, if you need to go to the gym 3 times a week, write that down as a promise and realize that's coming from that first part of yourself, that truest version. Okay, this is a promise being made. And I, as the action state me, can help keep this promise, help build the trust in this relationship by following through. And do that. Find something very simple at first. Whether it be, okay, I'm going to wake up 30 minutes earlier so I can have a little extra time before class. Okay, do that. Write that down. Make sure that it is consciously realized as, okay, this is a promise being made to myself. This isn't just something that popped up in my head. This isn't just something that could happen. This is a promise being made for myself. I basically need to get this done in order to build that trust with me. And then it's all up to the action version of you to get it done. And if you do, well, then the next time around, make it a little bit bigger, until you have basically, and this can take years and years of your life. But then at the end of that, you have a person, the whole, with a absolutely unbreakable trust with yourself, where when you say something's going to get done, no matter how big or small it may seem, no matter how difficult the task may look to an outsider, to you, you know you're going to get it done. And it's also, you get this gauge of, okay, what can I actually do? Because you can't necessarily say, okay, this week I'm going to make $1 million and just follow through on that. that's also going to break your trust, because even for something like that, if you put 100% of your energy into it 100% of the time for that week, well, you're still probably not going to reach that. Okay, well, then you realize that you need to tune down your goals. You want to push them to their limits, but not past them. Both of those break trust. That is where the mind of the truest version of you starts acting out of scarcity, is when they try to set a goal so high that they basically know it's not achievable. And we want both of these sides of ourselves to act out of abundance, because we want something to show up that is actually achievable, even though it might be very difficult and might require a lot of effort, is 100% possible. And then we want our ability to do that to also follow through, to act out of abundance with the promise that's been made, to actually go out and get them, get the thing done. This takes time. It really does take repetition after repetition, but that really is the formula. Create a promise, keep that promise. If you don't, change it to something that you will keep. And if you don't keep that, change it again until it's something very simple. But at the same time, push it. The next time around, push it a little more to see if you can get a little more out of yourself, and a little more here and a little more there. And doing this over months, over years, really, really sets you free as a person. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about is, again, this communication with yourself is very important. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. The fact of how you talk to yourself is literally the communication between these two entities. These two parts of yourself are communicating through the way that you kind of have this internal monologue. So if your internal monologue is one that is disrespecting you, one that is just beating you up, then you're not going to have that strong of a relationship. You're just going to be beating yourself down no matter what happens. If it is also a very lenient one where you are just letting go of everything, oh, nothing matters, I didn't care that I didn't reach this goal, or oh, this promise wasn't really that important anyways, well, then you're also going to have a relationship that is not very good. A relationship where just everything goes, where it doesn't matter, isn't one that's going to last for very long. So, yeah, I would say the big takeaway from all of this is realize this relationship with your own self. Figure out, how can I better this? What can I do? What is within my power? Which is really make a promise, keep the promise, and take action on that. I would recommend making a promise. It should be actually a very small one to start out with. Make a promise today that is just something very simple. Okay, I'm going to do my homework, or I'm going to do this or that. And it could be already something that you do already, but at the very least, you're consciously realizing, okay, this is a connection that I'm building here. So if you enjoyed this video, well, I like a thumbs up. If you didn't enjoy this video, I would like a thumbs down. If you would like to leave a comment, do it. I mean, you probably know all the things. Subscribe if you want some more of this, because every Wednesday I release a video talking like this. Usually I film them outside, but it was raining today and it kind of made me a little sad. But yeah, that is about it. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day. Bye-bye.